Okay, this is Geotrig, part 2 of logarithms. This time we're going to solve logarithmic equations. So we're going to start off actually pretty simple here, and it will get more complicated with a couple different techniques that are going to come into play. So the first technique here that we're going to use for today is just switching. Switch it out of log form into exponential form, and things will make a lot more sense. All of these problems here are generally set up that once you switch it, the answer will be fairly obvious. So, hence, let's just take that first equation here of log base b of 8 equals 3. So, remember doing the switcheroo, so we get b to the third equals 8. And so now, because of how easy these ones I'm hoping are, you should be able to say, hey, what to the third power is equal to 8? And then I could hopefully would say, you know the answer is 2. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to do a couple more with you here. Let's move on to the next one here. So b to the negative 1/2 equals 9. Now this one is interesting. Now the fact that we have a couple different ways here to handle this, but let's just think this way through, and I'll go back to that first problem and show you a different way of solving, other than just using your intuition and number sense that you guys do know. We have something to the negative power. What happens when you have things to the negative power? Generally, they get brought to the basement. And so if it's in the basement, it has to become a 9, though, on top. So that's kind of interesting. So what are we thinking here? Well, one way that I like to think of these is the fact that I kind of ignore positives and negatives up front, and I kind of think, hey, what power, some number, when I bring it to the 1/2 power, would make a 9? And so I'm hoping that people would be like, hey, 81 to the 1/2 power would be 9. But the problem is, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, that this is negative. And negatives actually, when we have it on a number, brings it from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top. So that means that 81 would not have to be on the top because of that negative, it would have to be on the bottom. So that means that b is equal to 1 over 81. It's because I'm going to flip the fraction, right? Take the reciprocal, that's what the negative does, and then bring it to the 1/2 power. And remember, 1/2 powers are like square roots. And so therefore, it's a square root of 81, which is 9. Now, I said something about earlier that there's more of a mathematical way, I guess we could do these. If I'm looking back at this problem, if I want to get rid of the third power, don't I just take the cubed root of both sides and the cubed root of both sides? So the cubed root of b cubed, those cancel out, the cubed and the cubed root, and then you end up with the cubed root of 8, which is 2. So you could ask yourself, hey self, what time to self 3 times is equal to 8? Or you can take the cubed root of 8 and you get 2 both ways. Now on this particular problem, to get rid of a negative 1/2, I don't bring it to second power to get rid of the 1/2. I have to take it to the negative 2 power. I'm going to change colors on this one. I feel like we could use a little color coding here. So these two will cancel each other out. So b itself is equal to 9 to the negative 2 power. And if I do that, remember negative powers bring it to the basement, and then 9 squared is 81, and that's why you get 1 over 81. So there's a couple different ways, again, you can handle this. You can kind of think about it through your head, or you can do this more mathematically, methodically, those type of things. So, next problem. Do the old switcheroo again. 3, to the m equals 1 over 27. Now, if you notice that, again, 3 is a whole number, 1 over 27 ends up being a fraction. And so therefore, that means that the power on 3 is actually going to be negative. So you know that m is going to be a negative. Then the next question that I'd ask myself is 3 to what power is 27? And I'm hoping everybody would say it's 3. And so 3 to the negative 3 power is 1 over 27. Moving on. Doing the old switcheroo here, it's 1/3 to the negative 2 power is equal to p. Now these ones are actually you should like. You just need to actually evaluate the exponent. Now again, it's a negative exponent. It's on a fraction, so I will flip the fraction and make it a positive power. And if you remember how to take powers, you take powers on fractions to the top and to the bottom. So this becomes 3 squared over 1 squared, or just 9. And the last problem, 4 to the x equals 8. Now this is probably the hardest problem of this whole entire page or problem set, because this one's going to go into, actually I'm going to save this for next time. So this will be saved for next time, because next time in video 3 or part 3 we are actually going to get bases to be the same. And so I have a different worksheet for that one for you. So your homework for tonight, it is going to be called, it's called a maze. Maze 1, I think I have it hyperlinked on Power School Learning. And it is a bunch of problems like we have here, and it's a maze. So there are going to be 2 answers for every problem, and your job is to then find out which path are you going to take to get from the start, which is on the top left, to get to the end, which is on the bottom right. So if you can't get to the end with showing your work, that means you've done probably something wrong. So, good luck, have fun, and I'll see you then.